My son's imaginary friend kept warning him about the man in the basement until our new smart camera caught something that made my blood run cold. My son Eli was 4 when he started talking about his imaginary friend, a fairly normal phase for kids his age. Most of it was harmless. Tea parties, made-up games, typical imaginary friend stuff. But about 2 months in, his story started taking a darker turn that unsettled me more than I wanted to admit at the time. He started mentioning the man in the basement during bedtime, saying his imaginary friend had warned him not to go down there at night because the man doesn't like noise. I chalked it up to an overactive imagination, maybe influenced by something he'd seen on TV that lodged itself in his young mind, without me realizing. The mentions continued, growing slightly more specific each time he brought it up. Eli said the man wore a gray jacket and sat very still near the water heater. He said his imaginary friend told him the man only came when everyone was asleep. I found the specificity strange for a child his age, but child psychologists I read about online said imaginative detail was normal developmentally, so I tried hard not to overreact. Still, something about his description nagged at me quietly for weeks. Our basement did have an old water heater in a shadowed corner, rarely used space near an old boarded-up second entrance we'd never bothered clearing out since moving in 2 years earlier. About a month later, we installed a smart camera system throughout the house, mostly for general home security, rather than anything specifically related to Eli's stories. I honestly hadn't connected the two until reviewing footage a few weeks after installation was finished. Late one night, motion alerts triggered from the basement camera. I checked the footage the next morning, expecting probably nothing, maybe a pet or a draft, triggering the sensor accidentally. Instead, grainy footage showed a shape near the water heater, difficult to make out clearly in the dim lighting, but unmistakably human-shaped, sitting eerily still in exactly the spot Eli had described months earlier. My stomach dropped completely. I rewound further, finding similar motion triggers on nights going back weeks before we'd even installed the cameras, according to timestamps that somehow matched up almost exactly with nights Eli had specifically mentioned his imaginary friend's warnings at bedtime. I called the police immediately, showing them the footage rather than trying to investigate anything myself. Officers confirmed what I'd started fearing. The old boarded entrance we'd never fully secured had been pried open just enough for someone slight to slip through, likely someone who'd been accessing our basement intermittently for reasons still unclear at that point. They found evidence of someone having been down there for extended periods, a makeshift resting spot near the water heater, food wrappers, signs of someone using our basement as an occasional hiding place during vulnerable overnight hours when the entire house was quiet and everyone was asleep upstairs. The individual was eventually identified through nearby security footage as someone experiencing homelessness in our area, who officers explained had likely been seeking warmth and shelter rather than intending harm, though the situation remained deeply unsettling for our family, regardless of intent behind it. We secured the basement entrance permanently that same week, reinforcing it completely beyond what the previous owners had bothered doing over the years. Eli's mentions of the man in the basement stopped entirely once the entrance was sealed, and he eventually stopped bringing up his imaginary friend altogether within a few weeks after that. I still think about how close those warnings came to being dismissed entirely as nothing more than a toddler's overactive imagination. Sometimes what feels like nothing worth investigating turns out to be exactly the thing worth listening to most carefully all along.